well, that was gorgeous. That was a
Yeah,
countdown from 30 to 0.
that got
Daniel,
me pumped. The music was exciting.
yeah, I'm invigorated. Daniel, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bit tired, but I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm the same. Yeah, I hear you. Last
Yeah.
time I saw you, you were going one direction. I was going the other direction. That
Hmm.
was several hours ago. We've now had supper. We've put kids to bed. We've kissed our wives. We've consulted, and now,
Yes.
for some reason, it's like now we're doing this now.
Yeah, it's fun, and I got all this set up. You can't see. Well, I guess you can see I'm a little bit lit up, and I got my
Oh, oh,
microphone, and I got my GoPro, and I got everything set up. And next time it won't be as much set up though, because I'm just gonna leave it here and just sit back down in this throne that I found.
well, and
Do you
you're
see?
in your undisclosed location, so no one
Yeah.
for the stalkers, so they can't track you down.
So yeah, yeah. Well, and for people who are just listening on this podcast, they
Yeah,
wouldn't even see what kind of religious looking chair this is, so they'd
yeah,
have no idea.
it is Throne Lake,
Yeah, yeah.
and not
It
and
was
not
the
like and not like
they
in. Have you seen Elf before? The classic
You
Christmas
sit
movie.
on a throne of lies.
There you go. There you go. So you're not on a throne of lies, not at all. It looks like it's
No.
maybe oak. It's probably
Hmm.
oak and leather
I
and
think so.
whatnot. So this is insane. I've been excited ever since we started talking about this project, and I think it's
Mhm.
safe to say this is episode 1 of a brand new podcast being unleashed on the earth, and it's called. You say that. What's it called? What's this
It's
podcast called?
In light of death.
Light of Death.
In light of death. There's so many meanings that come from that name. Okay, first of all, why death?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Okay.
People who don't know who we are, what do we do?
There we go. Where you go, world? You're looking at 2 seasoned funeral directors. Yeah,
Right,
undertakers, both of us.
morticians. What,
Morticians,
yeah,
creeps, weirdos. No, we're funeral service professionals. We're death care experts.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so that's the death part, and we deal with death day in and day out. I can get a call at 2 in the morning dealing with death. I can get a call any time of the day or night. Both either one of us,
Right.
we're on call 24/7 in regards to
Well, and
death.
we take turns, and tonight's your turn. So you could get a
It is.
call during this podcast. Not funny. You could get a call
No.
during this podcast, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just how we roll.
That's right. And
Right.
so we deal with death day in, day out, and I think it's something that is actually important to talk about as well. And there's so many aspects to death, whether it be preparing for death or what happens after you die, or I mean, there's a thousand things that I think we're going to touch on, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
So
me too.
in light of death, that's what this is going to be about. And yeah, there's so much to talk about, and I think
Well,
it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot.
I love it because, and not that we have to go through the history of this, but there was another name that we could have. Well, I keep saying we, like you came up with another name that we loved it, but then I think the more we thought about it, there was a heavier tone to it. Where this
Hmm.
having in light of death, it just has we're not going to be doing spooky ghost stories,
Right.
and we're not.
Although, I mean, that
Oh,
might come up. That might
sure,
come up.
sure. I
But
would, I would love to see a ghost. I've had so many. You have people ask you that in your career. Do you see ghosts a lot? I've never seen
yeah.
a good one. I've been in some of the spookiest places at 3 a.m. Not even a
Hmm.
creek. Like, come on,
Yeah.
ghost.
I
Somewhere.
know I'm the same. I have never seen a ghost. I saw um a demon one time, but
Oh,
that was
okay.
yeah, but I mean, you've never heard that before. Oh, and by the
Oh,
way, James and I are going to be getting to know different random things about each other through this
yeah.
podcast, as we always are, which is exciting.
Yeah. That's right. Wait, a demon. Okay, so we don't want to scare people. Like,
Yeah, no,
were you on a lot of meds because you're sick or something? Or
no, I was in the mission field in the Caribbean,
okay, here we
and
go. Here we go.
do you want to hear the story? I mean,
Well,
this
let's yeah, we knew we weren't going to be like super hardcore template on episode 1. So
right.
you're in the Caribbean, you're being attacked by
Yeah.
demons. Go.
Okay, so I woke up, and some people call this sleep paralysis. And I woke up, and I was bound in a fetal position, and
Right.
yeah, I was clearly awake. I
Okay.
could sense the presence, like I could sense a presence in the
Yeah.
room.
So you're
And
all like crunched up.
yeah, in a fetal position. I
Oh,
never saw
really?
that ever, first of all. But I was and I couldn't move, and I tried to stretch myself out. I couldn't move no matter what I tried, and,
Weird.
yeah, and then I remembered, a book that I had read, and a missionary, something happened to him very similar, and he said if he could say the name of Jesus, it would break.
Break
So I
it.
told myself, "Okay, let's say Jesus' name right here, right now," and I couldn't breathe.
You
The
couldn't even
I
breathe to say
I
Jesus.
cou I didn't even realize that until I tried to say something, and then I was like, "I can't even breathe right now."
Oh
So
my.
I was praying, and I was praying in my head, in my mind, and I was praying for
Right.
freedom, and then finally I squeaked out the name of Jesus. I just breathed it, and all of a sudden I was released like that,
Wow.
and then I was like, "Oh," and I got up, I sat up, and I went over to the living room. Now, this is in the Caribbean. They don't have in the mountains. There was no lights. It's pitch black, and I opened the door, and I
Right.
saw a figure darker than night itself walk across the living room,
What?
open the kitchen door to the outside, walk out, and close the door. And I go, "Whoa, what in the world did I just see?" It was like darker than night, and it was
Wow.
bizarre. And then I heard a voice across the room, and it was my dad, and he goes, "Daniel." I was like, "What? You're up?" He goes, "Yeah, did you see that?" I said, "Yeah, what did you see?" He goes, "I saw a figure darker than night walk across the living room."
What?
Yeah,
Holy
and I
cow.
was yeah, and I'm like,
Is this one of
"Wow."
these podcasts now? Holy cow. That is supernatural.
Yeah, so I haven't seen a ghost, but I believe I
Yeah.
saw a demon.
That's way cooler than a ghost. Well, not that demons are cool. So get lost, demons. You're not cool.
Not
But,
welcome here.
yeah, that's spooky. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I guess now we're telling demon stories, or we told one anyway on episode
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Can you say the name
that's
of
what
the
I got.
country, or you don't want to scare anyone to ever wants to go to that country ever again?
You know what? It can happen anywhere, and, because I believe in the spiritual realm,
So
and
you're not even going to tell us the country you're in.
well, it's Saint Vincent and the Grenadines.
No,
Beautiful, beautiful country.
I'm just scratching
Um,
that off my list. I'm going to never go to
well,
that country.
if you're scratching countries off the list that have demons, I think you're gonna have to scratch the world off the list, but
Good point.
anyways, this podcast isn't about demons at all.
No, it isn't.
But you know what? That's part of my life, and now you know.
Well, and I got a feeling, just the way we both we're different generations, but we both have the same. I don't want to say ailment, the same affliction. That's even worse. That you can sort of like jump around in your head, and so I think we're going
Yeah.
to take some left turns, right turns, full
Mhm.
stops, reverses
And
in this
yeah,
podcast.
so
Yeah,
to the listener, buckle up, and you might want to wear a helmet because of the whiplash you're gonna get.
yeah. That's good. I like that. I like that. Well, let's do something that we did talk about.
Sure.
Uh, Daniel, you're 38 years
8.
old. 38
Mhm.
years old. Never kissed a girl from that song, but you have kissed a girl, your wife.
Yes.
You're 38 years old,
Mhm.
and you've been a funeral director for I'm thinking about 10 years, about a decade.
Yeah, I got into it 12 years ago, but I
Okay.
got licensed officially 10 years ago. Yep.
Okay. So here's my question: what in the world would drive a person to become a funeral director? And you don't come from a funeral family.
No,
You're
I
not like
don't.
the son of the son of the son of. You're like a first generation undertaker. What
Yep.
happened? How did this happen?
Mhm. Great question, and I got asked that a lot because it's a weird thing to choose to do, right?
It is.
My dad was a pastor. He served for 36 years, and everyone was asking me, "Are you gonna be a pastor like your dad?" And I was like, only if God really like drags me in and says, "Daniel, you're going to be a pastor," because that's a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, and
Sure.
I got asked that my whole life, and I was like, "No, I don't. No, that's not for me." But I do want to do something that's ministry oriented,
Sure. Serving.
and I didn't know what that was. Right? For years, I served tables. I was a waiter. I loved it. I love working with
Yeah.
people. Um, Yeah, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to school for business accounting. I love numbers.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Ouch. No, I'm glad
yeah.
you did that, but that, yeah.
Yeah, I think numbers are fun. And I went to Bible college for a little bit just to
Cool.
kind of get away from everything and just go and study for a bit, and I enjoyed
Sure.
that. Um, and it's a funny story. I was driving by a cemetery one day with my sister in the car,
Mhm.
my youngest sister, and
Whereabouts? Whereabouts in
in
Canada?
Windsor, yeah,
Windsor,
in
Windsor.
Windsor,
Okay.
Ontario.
Okay.
Windsor, Ontario. I'm from
Okay.
southwestern Ontario, the
So,
most southern you can get in Canada. I'm actually more
yeah.
south than a fair amount of states.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I have to drive north to go to Detroit.
The
Um,
southern tip of Canada. We got it made.
yeah,
It's the banana
yeah.
belt. So you're driving by
hmm
a cemetery with your sister. Are you driving or she driving?
I'm driving. She's in
Okay.
the passenger seat. I think we went to the beach and hung out. Maybe did some yoga on the beach or something, and then
Okay.
I'm driving her back. We're gonna hang out some more, and we drive by a cemetery, and she goes, "Daniel, you should be a funeral director." And I'm like, "What?" I
Has
said,
that ever come up
"That's
before?
never, never." But
Okay.
I want to
She's
go
older
back.
than you? She's younger, older?
She's my youngest sister.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
The
funny.
baby.
Her and I never got along. I got
Okay.
along with. I have 4 sisters. I got along with 3 of them just fine all the time.
Okay.
Never fought. My
Nice.
youngest sister, we fought all the time. Uh,
Arr.
until we became adults and matured, and we get along super great now, which I'm grateful for.
Well, you go to beaches and cemeteries together.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know if
She
we've ever
said she
gone to a
said,
cemetery together.
well,
But
that day she said you should be a funeral director. Like, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
and I
then,
wanna
then
I
then
wanna
you became a funeral.
backtrack.
Yeah, back it
I
up.
I wanna backtrack for a second because what I was looking for in a career is actually really, really related to the title of our podcast, In Light
Okay.
of Death, and I'll tell you why after, okay? But you gotta
Okay.
remind me or else I won't remember.
Okay.
So,
I'll do my
she
best.
goes yeah, she goes, "You gotta, you should become a funeral director." I had no idea what funeral directors do,
Right.
uh, anything. So I dropped her off and I couldn't shake it. I thought, "You
Right.
know what? I'm gonna go check out what this is about." So, what I recommend to anybody, if you're gonna get in a big career change or something like that,
Yeah.
see if you can volunteer at that place for a week. And
Brilliant. Brilliant.
yeah,
Because
see,
what place of business, whatever it is going to turn down an able-bodied, halfway with it person that says, "Can I
right,
volunteer here for free?" They're going to say,
yeah,
"Yeah, here, hold
yeah,
this, yeah, shovel or whatever." Yeah,
exactly.
brilliant. Great advice.
So I went into that cemetery office and I said, "I would like to. I think I want to become a funeral director. Can I volunteer here for 40 hours?" And
I
what
know
do
where
you
this is
think they
going.
told me? Go ahead.
They're like, "This is a cemetery, kid. Let's,
Exactly.
get you
They're
in a
like,
funeral home." Yeah,
yeah, they're like, okay, you don't know anything. The funeral
yeah,
home's next door." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool, thanks." And I got in my car and I drove next door and I went to the funeral home and I'm like, "Can I speak to a manager?" And they go, "Sure." And they introduced me to Mike, the manager, and I said, "Hey, I have no, I'm thinking of becoming a funeral director. I've done a little research online, but I don't know what the job really entails. Can I volunteer here for 40 hours and see what it's all about?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure. You have to do that for your application for school, anyways." And I'm
there
like,
you go.
"Oh." And I was like, "Okay." So I volunteered for 40 hours. I was like, "Wow, you know what? In this career,
Yeah,
I can minister to people in the hardest time of their life. I can
yeah,
try to make it a little bit easier for them. That goes in line with my ministry oriented career that I was looking for."
right, and you could tell that right away.
Yeah.
Tell that right away.
And then I took a
At that
pay.
point in your life, had you been to many funerals? Had you been like as like a
No,
visitor or family members? Had you been
a
to a bunch of
few.
funerals? A
No,
few?
a few,
Yeah,
like probably
okay,
maybe 3, 4 funerals,
okay,
like
okay,
my great-grandmother, great-grandfather,
sure,
grandfather, that sort of thing.
right,
I was never afraid of a dead body, like a lot of, uh, I've heard a lot of people are, I can't be around that, and I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
seeing people really sad never had a huge effect on my emotions. That's
sure.
another
You
thing
didn't
that a lot
care.
of people
No,
say.
just
Yeah,
joking. No,
well,
no, of course you cared. I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
So
wow. So this manager sees you, and imagine you 12 years ago. were just as hot as you are tonight. No, we're just like, he probably thought, okay, this is a go-getter. This is a guy.
Yeah, and he paid me. He paid me for the 40-hour volunteers, which is awesome. And
Great
then
incentive.
he was that.
Great incentive. So we're like, oh, there's money involved. So yeah, nice gift for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing people sometimes mistake, and a lot of times they say, "Oh, funeral director, you guys are raking in the money." Like,
Oh yeah,
oh
you're
yeah,
loaded. You're
yeah,
loaded.
you guys wear nice suits, you guys drive nice cars, and
Right.
it's like, well, that's actually the corporation's stuff. You know what? I'm thankful. I'm God has provided. I'm able to put food on the table, pay my mortgage, pay my bills.
Yeah.
I'm blessed. When I first started, I actually ended up taking a pay cut from being a waiter
Yeah, I
to
can
do
imagine.
this.
At the early days of all of us as the apprentice or intern,
Hmm.
yeah, you're the bottom of the rung kind of thing.
Right.
But
But
yeah,
now
years later, you've paid some serious dues, and you are loaded now. No, it's just
and this okay, and for those of you who might not know, James is my boss.
uh,
we
well, coworker. Yeah,
we work at Life Transitions. James
yeah,
and his wife are the owners, and
right.
I'm privileged to be a funeral director with the company.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, yeah, you're our senior director. You kind of had a weird stare the other day when I said, you said I'm the funeral director. Yeah, you're the senior director because I think 10 years in, if you haven't earned senior director, get out. But no, yeah, you're awesome. This is now everyone's like, oh, this is all gushy and weird, or should we even be listening in on this conversation now? But yeah, I
yeah,
really enjoy this new stage that our little company's in with you coming on board. And
yeah.
right, what we're doing right now is something that I've wanted to do for ages. And your YouTube channel, everyone says I
Mhm.
say YouTube funny. I don't know why, but
Yeah, I think you emphasized the wrong syllable.
yeah, I know, and I try not to, but every time I say YouTube, it sounds like that. But so I knew that this is in your wheelhouse, or in your in your list of things to sort of to share with the world in these kind of ways. And so
Mhm.
this is all kind of just coming together, and
Yeah.
we're pretty good at winging it, both of us.
Yeah.
Uh, you
Yeah.
you did a graveside today, which was probably a certain amount of winging it, but no one would ever know you were winging it.
Yeah, and I guess you know what the thing about winging it, if you're completely unprepared and you don't know what you're talking about, it sucks.
Yeah.
but but thankfully, both of us have a ton of experience in this industry.
Yeah.
We kind of know what we're talking about with when it comes to our wheelhouse of knowledge, if that's the right terminology.
Yeah. I like
And
it. Yeah.
when like I mean at the graveside today, yeah, I mean I knew one person there that I had met for an hour in my entire life, and there was a whole bunch of people there. I didn't know they're deceased, and but you know, maybe people that would make a lot of people nervous because they might be winging it. But I
Yeah.
mean, if
Yeah.
you do this so many times and you have it in your heart and in your mind what it's about, and you can do it well.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yeah. For sure. For sure. And yeah, you sort of gave me a bit of feedback in a text that it went very, very well, and I wouldn't doubt it for a second. And
mhm.
yeah,
They laughed, they cried. That's good.
that's the best. I had the privilege, the sad privilege, I guess. I helped a family bury their newborn infant this morning. And
Mm,
again, I don't say that to say wow, but that's the kind of world that we live in, and that we've chosen to work in too. That
mhm.
there was no laughter at that graveside this morning.
No, it's true.
Really surreal as this family lowered this little casket into the dirt, and then
Mhm.
they all took a handful of dirt. It was yeah, it was really really heavy, but also them saying, thank you so much for what you guys have done and helping them. And yeah, it's such a mixed bag being a funeral
Mhm.
director. That's sometimes it is a riot. The 99-year-old that drifted off in her sleep after living this amazing life, and the service is incredible, and people are laughing and celebrating and
Yeah.
honoring them, and then that death of a child. It's crazy, and everything
Yeah.
in between.
Do you cry much?
More than I thought I ever would as a funeral director.
What do you
And the
mean?
older I get too, well, I guess I thought, when I went to Humber many years ago, thinking, professional, welcome, yes, this kind of cut and dry, I'm getting this job done, and that's okay, dear. You go ahead and cry. But
Right.
that really wasn't me anyway. So when I realized early on, like, oh, okay, I'm okay to say, I am, my heart breaks with you guys. And sometimes we even say those things looking in the eyes of a mother, father,
Hmm.
sister. All of a sudden I'm crying too, or I can't say my words because you get that weird puffy cry mouth, that you
Oh,
can't.
I'm a terrible I'm a
A big
terrible
snot bubble
crier.
comes out. No snot bubbles, but yeah, no, I cry more than I thought I ever would. But I feel like I'm allowed to, and people seem to appreciate going like, wow, this guy's still getting the job done, but he's just a regular person. That's
Like,
what.
would you say you cry every day or once a
No,
week? Or
no. Oh no. Are you
how
crazy?
often?
I'm not a nut. No. No, I don't cry every day. No.
Okay, okay.
It depends on the month, because the thing that, like, the catalyst for the crying, or
Depends
for
on
the
the
what
time of
we
the month.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, is this mean our cycles are synchronizing? I don't know. I don't know. I am crampy tonight. I'm really crampy. No, no, it depends on the families. Like, you know what it's like
Yeah.
in a week or a month. You deal with X number of families, and
Hmm.
it depends on the death. It depends on the family and all those details. So, I don't know if I could put it into, like, monthly. My cry quotient is up to 7. What are
Right.
you crying every day at this point in your life, or
Me?
yeah, you just ball. You were crying earlier today, but I mean, no.
No, honestly, I wish I could cry more.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm trying to think. I cry when I'm trying to my heart is overwhelmed with gratitude and I'm trying to make a public announcement of maybe thank you so much for showing up to the baby shower, and then I start going prepubescent and my voice goes all high and scratchy, and then I start pouting, and I start and I start blubbering, and I'm like
Right, right,
and then I'm like, this is stupid.
right, right.
But
Then you just run away. Yeah, right.
Audrey, help me. Uh, but I sometimes I want to cry because like we deal with some really super sad things, and
Yep.
I mean, I remember this one time, and I mean, and I guess we should say, to a warning to our listeners, we're going to be talking about some things on this podcast that are probably heart wrenching. We're
Yeah, yeah,
we're not going to try to say stuff that's just outrageous and just for saying its sake,
right, right,
but there are things that we deal with that we'll probably bring up, and if sometimes we sound like we it's, I don't know, not as heavy or weighty as it should be, um it's not that we don't care, or maybe it's because we deal with this day in and day out.
right,
um
right. We're
so
not
just
neither one of us is afraid of death, and we
no.
don't I don't we don't recoil from awkward, challenging situations, because
Hmm.
that's what we're called to do. So
Right.
yeah, you're right. But yeah, we could say something in one of these podcasts that, the word nowadays is triggers
Yeah.
somebody
Hmm.
to a memory or something. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess that's
But I
buyer
just wanted
beware.
to bring that up because there's some times where I've wanted to cry.
Mhm.
Like, oh, and I might even cry talking about it now, but
Sure.
I'll try to save that for episode 2.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
where you're dealing with something super tragic, and then it's like, I wanna cry, and maybe my eyes get wet, but then I'm focusing so much also on maybe the task at hand, or, okay, I'm trying to do this for this person and this for this person,
right,
that
right.
I kind of move past those emotions, and,
I
uh
find I have I've come to at 55 years old. I've come to recognize I've got a bunch of uh, not to keep reusing the word trigger, a bunch of triggers in me that
mhm.
whether it's about fatherlessness or divorce or abandonment things, and then dealing with families that have those kind of things, and relating to people, that all of a sudden I think, oh, this is one of my triggers. And then
Interesting.
and then yeah, like just like in a movie, I'm watching
Right.
Bridge to what's that? Bridge to
Oh,
Terabithia? What is that?
Terabithium. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's really kind of weird.
yeah. I watched like a half hour with my daughter Georgia the other night, and we're both crying. She's like,
Oh
"Dad, are you
wow.
crying?" I'm like, "That's a really heavy movie. I thought this was like a goofy kind of thing, but yeah, yeah. I think everyone has these triggers
Right.
that take them to a different place, and then you're looking at a fellow human being that has the same pain, and it's like, oh, brother or
Mhm.
sister, I'm with you. But anyway,
Especially, I guess, when when it relates to personally, that's when it
yeah,
really,
yeah,
yeah, hits you hardest.
yeah, yeah, big time, big time.
Mhm.
So I've been thinking about this lately. How uh, the two of us were both first generation undertakers. I'm not
Right.
from a funeral family either, and I heard this guy say years ago that was also a first generation undertaker. He goes, yeah, we're funeral directors because we want to be, not because we had to be. I thought, oh,
That's true.
that's
Yep.
kind of cool. Wasn't sort of like,
Mhm.
well, just like people would ask you, are you going to be a pastor like your dad? And
Right.
the path didn't go that way. But
Right.
now here we are cutting this brand new path in our two individual families.
Mhm.
Whether anyone follows us and then goes,
Yeah.
yeah, you have two daughters. I've got two sons, three daughters.
Mhm.
At this point, I don't think any of them are going to be funeral directors, but
We'll
yeah,
see.
we
My
just got
my daughters do not have an aversion to death, I'll tell you that much.
yeah.
Some of the stuff they say is I just shake my head. I'm like, "Oh, you are a funeral director's daughter through and through." So I'll tell you a little something.
Okay.
The other day we're in church, and the girls know that I bury people, and
Yeah.
so Esther, my 5-year-old, she goes, "Mommy," in the middle of church, and Audrey's like, "Yeah," and Esther goes, "Dad's kind of old, right?" And and Audrey and Audrey's like, because my wife is a bit younger than I am, and Audrey's like, "Well, he's older,"
Yeah.
and she goes, "So he'll probably be dead before us, right?" And Audrey's like, "Well, we don't know what God has in store, but yeah, most likely." And then Esther goes, "Well, if he dies before us, who's gonna put us in the mud?"
Oh, love it. Who's going to put us in the mud? I love it.
And I'm like, and I was
That'd be a
actually
great ad. That's a great prearrangement ad. Who's going to put you in the mud?
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Spoken like a child, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's just like because I mean, I've helped them bury a bird that we found, and so
yeah.
it we put the bird in the mud. It's just the way it was, you know.
Which so many people say is such a great entry point for any kid. To talk
Hmm.
about death is like death of a pet or death of an animal. It's
Yeah.
safer. It feels easier than death of your grandma or
Well,
something like that.
I think we miss a lot of good life lessons by not being farmers like everyone used to be, because like of the
What do you mean, farmers?
well, I mean, like raising your own livestock, you
Oh, right.
have
Okay.
to, right?
Yeah, we're not.
This this
We don't
stuff,
see that. People don't see death all the time.
yeah, death
Yeah.
and so many other things that you can watch animals do to and with each other, that is like, oh, that's how that works.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Anyways,
we're now you see it in movies or something now, and
right.
this will come up time and time again in this podcast. How our society, our culture we live in here in North America, we have like over the last century, we have systematically pushed death farther and farther
Mhm.
and farther and farther out and way out to the margins, and we're living longer and da
Mhm.
da da da, and so the aversion to death and grief and suffering and pain is more pronounced now than ever,
Mhm.
ever,
You know
ever.
what? I
Yeah,
agree, and people don't even wanna talk about it. We'll talk a lot about that, I think.
yeah,
We're reaching close to half an hour, I see this here, and I would like to,
yeah,
um I wanna maybe end with the thing I said that I would get back to,
yeah, yeah.
and that is, part of what our title has to do with "In the Light of Death." I was raised to really think about the meaning of life
Okay,
and how important it is to live our life with that in mind. And my parents did a wonderful job doing that, and so I was always looking for a career that, okay, how many hours a day do we spend at our job? 8, 10 hours a day,
sure.
5, 6 days a week, maybe. some
Yeah.
people more, some people a little bit less. That's a huge chunk of our life, of what
Yeah.
we're giving our life to, right?
Right. Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Huge.
if I'm able to do something for my work that I find meaningful, that makes a difference, that I feel called to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever that might be. A good friend of mine's a realtor, and he loves being able to put people in the right family home, right? And whatever your calling is to be able to really see that in light of death, because you live one life here on earth, and
Yep.
then after you die, and it's like, are you making your life meaningful?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Makes me think of things like legacy. Like
Yeah.
how long will people talk about you after you're dead?
What will they
A month,
say at your
a month,
funeral?
a year? Do you talk about your grandfather's father ever? So like
No.
like
Mhm.
what I'm getting is like we're all here for a blip, and
Yeah.
yeah, as you just said, we need to make the absolute best of every day, of course, but yeah, that this life is a gift, and
And yeah, and
it can make a difference. We can make a difference.
even if they only talk about me for a week after I die, if I've been able to make an impact in their life and in other people's lives,
Sure.
that impact can actually last longer than your memory.
Yeah, big time, big time. Yeah, people say,
Mhm.
why are we all shaving our heads? Well, great grandpa Daniel shaved his head,
No,
and
they
it
might say,
we
"I don't
all do.
know. I don't know. It's so good to do." Everyone's
Oh yeah,
just
yeah, because they
right?
wouldn't talk about you. That's right.
They're
We
not
have
even
no
yeah.
idea.
We
It's
don't
a
know why we do this. It's just
yeah. There you go. See,
yeah.
yeah. See, I'm learning. I'm learning. And
Well,
listen, you're right. I'm looking at the timing here. 32 minutes. That's our first broadcast. Our first. We're gonna
episode.
let's try this here. We're gonna so we can see what it all looks like here. It looks something like this in light of death. Can you see it?
What looks
Oh, you
like
can't.
that?
You can't see that.
I can see that, but
Oh,
what point
oh,
are you making?
we're seeing the title there in light of death,
Oh, okay. Thank you.
and there you go. That's
But
yeah.
I mean, it's a podcast. I
No,
mean,
it's not just a podcast. This
I
this
know
is
it's
going
a
to make a difference in this world. Okay.
no, I'm saying the people who are listening and not watching are going to be like,
Oh,
"What in the
okay.
world is he talking about?"
See, because in my mind, podcasts are visual now. Like we still use
Yeah.
the old. We use the old. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. There we go. So
Yeah.
we can't high five each other and stuff like that. But I think this is a good start.
Yeah.
I think we got something here.
You
I
know
think we
what,
got something here.
James, I do enjoy talking with you. I'm lucky that I get to work with you day in and day out, and I'm actually looking forward to this podcast and seeing maybe who we can get on the show and who
Yeah.
we can
Yep.
what other kinds of things we can talk about. Should we give an email or something if someone wants to ask a question or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great idea. We probably the just our generic email
Yeah,
that people often use is info@lifetransitions.ca. Or if you
yeah.
went to the Life Transitions Facebook page, you can usually find us there. I think we're about 5,200 strong followers there. You could contact us a number of ways. If you've got an
Hmm.
idea, a question, you feel like you're interesting enough that we should interview you, we would love that. And
Yeah.
yeah, reach out anytime. That's a great idea. We'll just throw it out there.
Yeah,
And
and we'll try to respond, and hopefully sometimes you get a message and you don't see it for 2 months because Facebook hides it for some reason. It's a request.
yeah.
That happens
Oh
to me
yeah.
anyways, but
Yeah.
send an email, reach us on Facebook.
Yeah. If
We're on
you bump
Instagram a little bit.
you bump into Daniel at the grocery store, grab him. You bump into me
Rub
wherever
his
I
head.
rub his head for good luck. Yeah. But listen, we should get back to our families
Sounds
because
good,
we,
James.
we did work all day. So let's I guess we'll see you on the next episode.
All right, sounds good. Have a good
See you,
night.
brother. Bye
Bye.
bye.